Take Action Real Estate Podcast, episode 42.
Welcome to the Take Action Real Estate Podcast, where we share our knowledge and experience to help you become a better investor. Coming to you from Columbus, Ohio, Brian and John talk about all topics real estate, share their successes and failures, as well as interview amazing people to help you avoid the pitfalls and find success on your real estate journey.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Take Action Real Estate Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. We are excited for today's episode. Brian and I, we've been working together for 5 years here in the Columbus, Ohio area. Our office is in Dublin, small suburb. We are planning to flip or sell 40 houses this year. We're in contract on a 22 unit, which will bring our portfolio to close to 145, 150 units that we manage in-house. And we share our knowledge and experience so that you guys can have an easier journey than we did. We learned from a lot of failure, and I think everybody does, but maybe we can keep that to a minimum for anybody listening. So, Brian, welcome. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to just another good episode, good weekend coming up. A little rainy, so maybe we'll be doing some indoor stuff, but you're going to find some sun, I think.
I will be in Mexico with my family. So, I think the temps are around 86, 87 right now.
Well, try not to think too much of us.
Yeah, I'll send you some pictures or something to make you feel bad. But
well, we're just having a good time around here. This week we took our staff over to the Black Wing Shooting Center and had some fun. I guess probably about half of the staff had never handled a gun before, so that was kind of cool to see people shoot off a few rounds. And
yeah, it was fun. I was one of those people. It's a little nerve-wracking getting in there. I think for me, it was more just like not understanding all the parts of a gun and things and how it works. But yeah, we ended up shooting. Well, we had a 22 pistol, we had a 9mm pistol, we had 38 special, and then they brought out the big dog, the fully auto 9mm rifle.
Like an MP5.
I think your thing went out. I couldn't hear what you it wasn't coming through my mic.
That's really weird. The mic's not working.
Oh.
Is it working now?
Yep.
Well, there you go. Yeah, so, it was like an suppressed MP5, fully auto, 800 rounds a minute. It was kind of funny to watch Megan. She kind of held her finger on the trigger and blew through a whole bunch of rounds. It was kind of funny.
All of us were kind of feathering it a little bit, and she just gung-ho. It was awesome to see. I think we got it on video. We'll be posting it here probably in the next couple of days. But yeah, that was yesterday. We had a blast. I mean, shooting guns is fun, but just doing something with the team outside of the office for me is really fun. I think you get to see the employees or all of our kind of true colors. When we're outside of the office, we're not only talking about business all the time. So we had a blast. We went out to eat in old downtown Delaware afterwards at Amato's. Great pizza place. And we just had a blast. It was just great to spend time with our team.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. We also, this week, I think our first of 6 buildings is fully rented up over at the apartments. And I think we've got 1 or 2 people that are getting ready to sign for the next building. So I'm thrilled about that. I mean, we have 24 units there to fill. We're working around, and I think building 5 and 6 are really close to even being done. It'll be good to get that rented up. There's still some kids in the neighborhood that once in a while do a little bit of vandalism, and I feel like that the more people we move in, the less likely that's going to happen.
Yeah, it's gone really well. I mean, especially because we have a 24 unit complex and it's totally vacant. We thought, that first building, like that's going to be tough. People, they might not want to move into pretty much a vacant complex with only maybe a couple other people in there. But Darius, he's our property manager / leasing agent. He's done a fantastic job. He's been doing showings almost every day over there. And his hard work's paying off because we have tons of applications. We have a lot of action. He had some good ideas with, we put a fence up, did some landscaping and stuff that kind of, helps the curb appeal. And when people pull up, it looks a lot nicer. So we're really excited and, just glad that we're getting those rented a little faster than we thought we would.
I love the stories that come out of there. When I was over there yesterday, one of the neighbors, interestingly enough, his name is Bruce Wayne. He's definitely not Batman, but he's an interesting fellow that used to be he is a Vietnam War veteran, and he's really been looking out for the place, and he was just so excited. Every time I talk to him, he's just kind of gushing about what's happening there and how he really is impressed and thankful, and he tries to keep an eye out on the place. Also, the police come around and they talk to our contractor, and they're always just sort of very thankful that we're spending money there, trying to turn the place around. They say it's even pleasant to come over there now. They used to not like to come over there because it was kind of like the hub of crime in that little pocket.
Yeah, I mean, it's yet to be seen if we'll make any money off of it, but at least we're doing something nice for the community, just always giving back through our investments. He's more like Bruce Lee, isn't he? Doesn't he have like a samurai sword or something that he carries around?
I don't know if he carries it, but there's some story going around that he chased someone down the alley that was doing something
with a samurai
with
sword?
a samurai or some kind of a.
That's a good guy to have on our side right there. He's like the keeper.
He doesn't care either. He's like, I'm going to go after who's ever there. I'm going to do whatever I can to clean this neighborhood up. So it's good to have him around.
That's awesome. Yeah. And there's a granite company right behind our units too, and I think they're very thankful too. They had, I don't know if they had vandalism and theft and stuff, but I mean they're chunks of granite, so not a whole lot you can do to vandalize them. But just being in that close of a proximity to, basically a project, people were squatting and doing drugs and other things. But yeah, so anyways, enough about that. What else is going on? Bought a house this morning. I actually wasn't even going to work today, but had to come in to sign for a hard money loan on a property that we're buying in Pickerington. Gonna clean it up and flip it. And we sold one of our condos and another single family earlier this week on Wednesday.
We got a couple more that are going to sell next week, I think.
Yeah. So, yeah, going strong. I mean, I'm really just trying to hit the marketing hard, and I've been really consistent on my mailers. I think this month, again, something happened with the Google algorithm that kind of kicked us to the top of the, SCI, the organic search. We've just been getting a ton of web leads, probably at least one a day, and they're pretty solid. I mean, as far as quality of leads, the web leads are always the highest quality because these are people who they Googled, how can I sell my house? Or sell my house fast Columbus or whatever it is. Mailers, people will call just because they're curious. They a lot of times they're asking retailer. They call to tell us to take them off their list or whatever it is. So love the web leads, and those are going well. Dan's crushing it, getting out and seeing properties, and we're doing a couple wholesales now too. They're in neighborhoods that we don't typically buy. But in this market, there's buyers who are going to buy those properties that are a little bit cheaper and rent them out, and they're going to get a lot of cash flow probably. But just for us managing in house, we don't love those properties. But yeah, hopefully it'll be good for somebody. So
for sure. Yeah, this week we wanted to just run through some frequently asked questions. We as we interact with people and network. As we come across people that are kind of out there learning and doing things, we get a lot of questions. And so we thought, hey, why don't we just record those and throw them out there for everybody to just kind of listen to, and I'd love to hear your feedback. If you have different answers, then maybe we do. We'd love to hear from you. Maybe send us an email or, reach out to us. But hopefully you get some value out of some of our answers to some of these questions.
Right. And yeah, some of these are like, I have a lot of people who reach out to me, whether it's from the podcast or from Bigger Pockets where I'm active, and the coin meetup that I run and stuff. So some of these are just the most frequently asked questions, and some other ones are just questions that maybe somebody asked me once, and I just thought it was a really interesting question, so we threw it in there. So let's get started. So the first one, typically it's from wholesalers or really anybody who wants to get into looking for off-market deals. And they want to start mailing, or they've decided that mailing is going to be one of their marketing channels. They ask me, what is the best list? I don't think that there's necessarily a best list, but the one that I started with was absentee. And the reason is because typically those sellers have more points of motivation than an owner-occupied seller would. And what I mean by that is they have a tenant who they might, that tenant might move out every single year. So every year they're going to have to make a decision. Okay, do I put money back into this property? Do I list it myself? Do I hire a property manager? What if the tenant really destroys the place? You got to put $5,000 in. You're going to rent it back out for $1,000 a month or $900 a month. And so they have to make these decisions a lot more often than an owner occupied does. So when we're hitting them with mailers, we might send them 6 different mailers every year. we're probably going to hit pretty close to one of those times when, one of those tenants is going to be moving out, or one of those tenants, they're being forced to evict them, or whatever the situation is. So that's why I always recommend that newer investors start with the absentee. I think it's kind of a double-edged sword, though, because a lot of people are sending to absentee because it's kind of the low-hanging fruit. So this year, we've sent out 3 mailers. It's April right now. We're getting ready to send out our 4th, but we got more leads from our owner-occupied mailer than we did off absentee. And I think it's because obviously there's a lot more owner-occupieds. So for us, it's a much bigger list. It's a lot more of an investment. It costs a lot more. But those people are not being touched nearly as much as the absentee. So we're probably going to start hitting that a little bit harder. All these wholesalers or anybody looking for off-market deals, most of them are sending to absentee. So that's kind of flooded. Those people might be getting, I don't know,
20 a month,
10, 20 a month. And I mean, they might call one of them, or they might just throw them all away and figure, well, if I do decide to sell, I'm going to be getting one eventually anyways. So,
yeah, I think, I think absentee, that doesn't only include houses that are occupied by tenants. It could be you inherited the house after your parents died, or there's just different ways that people get a house that they don't live in.
Yep.
Just a house that they don't live in, that they have, they have either ownership or the tax bills sent to them or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. What's next on the list? Oh, I had somebody, he reached out to me through Bigger Pockets, and I think he was up in Cleveland. And he wanted to get into the wholesaling game, which a lot of people want to get started in wholesaling because they think there's zero investment to get in, and you're going to flip a contract for 20 grand right off the bat, and then you're set. It doesn't quite work that way.
Takes a little bit more hard work and hustle, and
it
really takes some money.
It takes money for the marketing. It takes time, networking, building your buyers list, and it also takes time and effort to learn how to talk to motivated sellers the right way.
Yeah.
I remember when I first started sending mailers, when I was sending 250 or 500 at a time, that was the biggest learning curve for me, which I'm an introvert, so it doesn't come as naturally to me to just talk to people in a kind of casual manner. And I wasn't very good at it at first. And I think even introvert or extrovert, most people, it's going to take some time to get used to talking to people like that.
Yeah, it's definitely a unique experience. I know there's been several times that I'll step in and kind of make some phone calls, follow up with leads or whatever, and it's definitely challenging. A lot of times people will start out with a script and they'll really just work from the script, but that can be kind of mechanical and awkward. And so trying to figure out how to be, personable and inviting, but still getting the information you need without putting people off.
Yeah, we got way off track there. The actual question is. So if you want to know about wholesaling, you're welcome. There, we just talked for like a couple minutes about it. The question was, do you think the market's oversaturated with wholesalers, and do I think it's a good time to get in? And my answer was probably not very helpful to them, maybe, because it's kind of yes and no. So I think, there's never going to be a convenient time to start a business. It's something you have to take risk. You have to jump in. You have to be vulnerable. And so for that reason, I think, yes, you should absolutely jump in, because if you're going to take action, eventually it's going to lead to success. You take action, and when you fail, you take action again, and you continue doing it. So maybe it's not the best market for it, but think about it. If it's not a good market for it now, and you can jump in there and you can succeed even a little bit, imagine when the market corrects and houses come down and you're going to be able to buy them for way cheaper. You're going to have way more experience. Why wait until the market's at the bottom to start? Because when you start, you're not going to be very good. You might as well get your experience now. Then you're going to be really good when the market's down at the bottom. My other answer is yes, the market is saturated. But what I told him is that most of the wholesalers are not doing a very good job. I think it seems like they're fly by night. They see it as making a quick buck. They jump in. The deals they're sending out are not good. They're not good. They're not putting accurate information in there. They're not building relationships with investors like me. They're just, pulling my email from some wholesaler list and just, I don't know them. I don't know how they do business. I don't know what title company they use. I don't know anything. I just, I see their name and their deal for the first time, and then, the emails start coming, and typically they're not very good deals. There's no margin left in it for me.
I think a lot of them probably don't know what title company they're using either.
Yeah. They'll probably, I'll get it in contract, and then they'll ask me what title company to use, right?
I'll be like, title company? What do you do with the title company?
I thought you just wrote me a check. That's not how it works.
So yeah, there's definitely a lot of wholesalers, but I love what you said. Just get out there and take action, because you have to learn, and there's a learning curve to it, and you got to get out and do the work to get through that learning curve.
Absolutely. Yeah, the next question we have on here is where do we get our private money from, and how much interest do we pay for that? Now, we've been doing this a long time, so that varies. We used to pay a lot more in interest than we do now because, I mean, the more private lenders you have, you're obviously going to use the easiest ones to work with, the lower interest rates, and so forth. Where do we find the private lenders? This is kind of like the chicken or the egg, right? Because a private lender is not going to want to loan to you if you've never done a deal. But how do you get your first deal done if you can't prove that you have enough value to loan money to, right?
I think the easiest place to start for most people is family, and your family knows you. They
Hopefully they trust you.
Yeah, you can build that trust a little bit easier with family, especially if you're giving them like a first lien on a house or whatever. So I feel like that's kind of the easiest place to start. Now maybe you come from a family that just doesn't have any money, and I remember reading a book some time ago about a police officer. I forget, it's a landlording book, I think, and he was a police officer, and before he left the police force, he started building his rental portfolio while he was a police officer, and then before he left, he just asked all the police officers that he knew to pool some money together, and he structured a deal with all these people that he already knew. They all put in little bits of money, and then all of a sudden he had a pool of money to go out and work with, and he was giving all of them a piece of every deal.
Yeah. I think it's important to, save or, show that you can put some of your own money into the deal. I remember one of the first properties that I bought over near Black Lake Estates by myself. I took a 401k loan. I was still working a full-time job, and I think I took like $15,000 to help pay for the down payment and the rehab on the property. So, I mean, if you are working a corporate job or, you have any type of savings or, 401k loan or whatever, you could use that to at least show, hey, I have this money. So, when you ask a private lender for funding, you're not asking for 100%. Because if you're asking for 100% and something goes wrong, some of their money might be on the line. Whereas if you're putting in, 10%, 20% of your money, then that gives them a little more peace of mind where if something goes wrong, your money is going to be the first money to be lost and they're still going to get paid back everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's we've used hard money lender. We mentioned that earlier, hard money loans. There are hard money lenders, and then there are banks that are more like investment banks. And I don't think we've ever used a company that calls themselves a hard money lender. But we use an investors bank. An investors bank, they're typically doing real estate deals, and they're funding the deal. They're not necessarily funding or underwriting the owner. They're looking at the property, they're looking at the numbers, the rehab budget, and typically I think their interest rates will vary depending on how many deals you do. Mm-hmm. So we use a lot of our properties come through that channel. A lot of our funding comes through one of those banks. But yeah, we do have some private lenders, some contractors that we work with that have some extra money, and they see what we're doing, and they say, hey, I've got some money. How can I get in on this?
And that's the best situation to be in because you have somebody working on your properties. It gives you some leverage, right? So we know we're invested in him. He's invested in us, and it's a good situation. We're both committed in multiple ways, and we know that he's not going to run off of a job with our appliances or something, right? Because he's got $100,000 loan on a flip we're doing,
right?
So it works out pretty nice. The other thing I was going to mention was seller financing is an option. Now, these deals are fewer and farer between. I don't know if that's the right way to say that, but we've done a handful of them out of I think we've probably done 160, 180 deals in the Columbus area. We've done probably 4 or 5 seller financed or subject to deals where you're taking over the mortgage of someone else who can't afford it anymore. But if you really don't have any money, that might be a good option you could probably focus your marketing towards people who might be not have a whole lot of equity and maybe they feel like they're underwater. So anyway, that's an option as well. Oh, we didn't talk about interest rates. So we've paid, I remember back in the day, and this is like kind of embarrassing to admit, but I think we paid like 25% interest annualized to an investor. It was like 15%, but it was 5 points.
Yeah, it was 5 points for the first 6 months, and then another 5 points if you went past that.
Yeah. And that was really the only deal that we've lost money on. And
Yeah, I mean, we've come close to losing money or lost a few dollars on a couple of deals, but
Yeah.
that one we lost pretty significantly.
we lost
on.
like 10 grand. And I think that was like exactly as much
That's
as
how much we paid.
that's how much we paid in interest. So coincidence? I don't know. But yeah, nowadays, private lenders, we pay anywhere between 7 and 12%, depending. 7 if it's going to be a longer project, 7, 8, 9, whatever. 10 to 12 if it's going to be a short-term flip or something where they're going to get their money back quickly. And then for our hard money lender, we're at the top tier because I think you have to flip 15 houses in the past 12 months, I believe.
Yep.
And so we satisfy that, and we pay, I think, 8.5% interest and 1.5 point, I believe.
Yep.
And we prefer using private money if it's available, but if we have too many deals, like right now we have, I literally don't even know.
We have
eight
a
or
number
10
of deals that we've just recently purchased.
8 or
so.
10 flips going on or something. So yeah, we've been like to the one we closed today. We closed with like what Brian was talking about, an institutional lender, basically some sort of hedge fund maybe or something, who's decided to use their money to loan on real estate. So those are kind of the interest rates that we pay, and the newer you are, the higher you should expect to pay. So, I mean, I remember at the beginning we were paying 16% to one private lender. Now, he was very easy to work with. And, I mean, all the deals he loaned on turned out very well.
And I would say not only the newer you are, but the less money you have in it personally. If the lender's got to put up more money, they're going to ask for it's bigger risk for them, so they're going to ask for more interest.
Yeah, LTV, right. So, all right, so there we have it, talking about private money. Negotiating tactics. So what we do, because we buy all of our properties, like I just said that we're like looking at wholesaling a couple, but we're going to buy them, whether we double close or buy them and hold them for a week and put them on the market or whatever. We explain to them that we're going to be the ones buying the property. And if we say we're going to buy it, we're going to buy it. A lot of wholesalers, I guess we kind of use wholesalers kind of against themselves, really, to say, hey, look at the contract. If it goes 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, these people, and if it says specifically this contract is assignable, they're probably not buying the property. They're not going to be the ones who close, and they're not going to be the ones that have the final say. They're going to take that contract and they're going to go market it to people and try to get the in-between. So kind of educating people about what wholesalers are and how our company is different sometimes helps, because usually they've talked to maybe a couple of them already.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with wholesaling for sure, unless you're maybe with the division of real estate. But, wholesaling can really help people from time to time, but it's a little bit more risky for the seller. And like John said, if we say we're going to buy it, we'll buy it, and at the number that we say we'll buy it at. We've never not closed on a deal.
Yeah. I guess another thing we use is we try to emphasize the problem solving. We hone in on kind of what their problem is and keep reiterating to them how we can fix it. So if their problem is they don't have anywhere to go, okay, then we're trying to solve problems. So we try to figure out, okay, well, what are you looking at? We have agents here. Do you want us to use one of our real estate agents to help you find a place? We've done that. We talked about that on the Upper Arlington flip.
Yep.
Just anything that can solve their problem. And a lot of times it's not even about money. We've bought a handful of properties from people who they let a family member move in, and it went poorly. The family member stopped paying them rent, but because they're family, they don't want to evict them. Now they're in this kind of between a rock and a hard place, and so a lot of them, they want us to buy the house so that we can take care of the problem. We're going to buy it, and if the tenant's not paying rent, then we're going to evict them. We're going to get them out. And so that's another, if that's the issue, money might not even be a factor at all. It might be something completely different. So finding that and figuring out how to solve it is really key. Follow up. I don't know if this is a negotiation tactic. Probably not. But this is just, I've been talking a lot about follow up lately. I know Joe McCall says 50% of deals come after the 5th or 6th touch to the seller. So that's something we've really been working on. We've really improved our follow-up this year, just calling them. We have automated emails, automated text. We send them letters. We send them or we send them letters that we're still interested. We send them letter of intents with a price on it. Just always trying to get in front of them, stay on top of it. And then we send a monthly mailer to all of our follow-up leads also saying, hey, we're still interested. So, I mean, they're probably getting touched like 4 or 5 times a month right now if they've called in and showed interest in selling. So not necessarily a negotiation tactic, but definitely something you should be doing if you're getting leads.
It's definitely a strategy to keep your your logo, your offer, your solution to their problem in front of them. So the next time they hear from you, like, oh yeah, I remember, I've seen this before. Let me call out these guys.
Right. And if you want more information on negotiating, look up Michael Quarles. He's kind of the king. He has a bit of used car salesman feel to him, but a lot of his what do they call them? The objection handlers, I think is what they call them. So when people come at you with an excuse, have something to say back to them. Something that actually solves their problem, or I guess
overcomes their excuse at least, and
right.
And maybe their excuse is really trying to shut you down politely, but you definitely don't want to. You kind of want to keep the upper hand in the conversation as much as possible without feeling like a salesperson. Like you really want to solve someone's problem, and if they're not open to it or that they just want to walk away, we're not pushy at all.
Right. And yeah, Michael Quarles, we have his script. I think you can go get it for free. It's like a 3 or 4 page script. They just keep asking detailed questions, and I think on his podcast he actually does like role playing, where he has somebody else act like a seller who like is just not going to sell, and he will finally get them to the point to either say yes or no.
Yeah.
So good stuff. A little better resource than we are on that topic probably. Someone asked us what we don't buy. I thought that was kind of an interesting question.
Yeah, we don't. There's several kinds of properties we don't buy, and I don't know if it's. We've definitely looked into some of them. We wouldn't. I don't think we would be against it. It would depend on the deal, the numbers, whatnot. But we've never bought at this point a mobile home, and I don't. That has a whole challenge of its own. I have a buddy that's looking to buy a mobile home park. I would be open to having a conversation about a mobile home park, but a specific mobile home, we wouldn't probably buy that.
I'm not going to say we don't buy these, but single families that don't have a basement and don't have a garage, they are certainly a challenge to rent and to sell. So we are very careful. We need a much bigger discount on properties like these because we know that it's going to be harder to rent and to sell. So basically it comes down to there's no storage. So people come in, they got stuff. We sold. We sold
one this week.
Yeah,
that we got, but we got it at a pretty good discount, so it wasn't a horrible deal.
Right. But if you've been in a house like a 2-bed, 1-bath, 3-bed, 1-bath on a slab, there's like a small closet, maybe in the hallway, and maybe small closets in the bedrooms, but there is nowhere to put stuff. You pretty much have to build a big shed or something if you have anything, or get a storage unit or something. So
right. We often say don't buy weird. So you'll walk through a house and it'll just have kind of a weird layout, like. The kitchen's, you got to walk through a bedroom to get to the kitchen, or, there's a number of houses in the area that have like 2 bedrooms connected to each other. You have to walk through one bedroom to get to the other bedroom. And I don't really understand that layout. And I feel like those are a little bit more difficult to sell just because the layout's weird. So for whatever that means, sometimes you'll buy a house that's had 2 or 3 additions and they weren't very carefully thought out. And so it just feels weird.
Yeah. Don't buy weird. Somebody else asked about creative financing. We kind of already touched on this without meaning to, but subject to seller financing, this is a great way to get your foot in the door without a lot of money if you don't have it.
Yeah, sometimes a deal just doesn't work. The numbers don't work very well. And if the seller can leave their financing in place, then maybe you can get the deal done. We bought a couple of properties that the numbers were really tight when you include all the interest that you're paying to a hard money lender or a private lender, and we convinced them, hey, if you leave the money in place, or your loan in place, then we can probably get this done.
Yep, and it helps everybody out.
Yeah, it helps them solve their problem. It's a little bit of a challenge for them to overcome, so you got to figure out how you're going to help them overcome the risk of, hey, you're taking over my loan. You say you're going to pay it. How do I know you're going to pay it? Now, typically these people are already either not paying their loans or they're behind or whatever. So there's a little bit more motivation there.
So if we don't pay it, it's going to be the same as it is now, right?
Right.
We've never done that though. We've always caught it up and paid until the house was sold. And I think we have one that we still own as a rental property. We did some repairs to it, and then we just refinanced it out. So we refinanced it. They got their money back, or not their money back, but they got their loan paid off.
I remember she was bugging us for a number of months.
Yeah, she was a nice lady. And these things are, subject twos, I guess, I don't want to say a gray area because they're not illegal by any means. But there is the due on sale clause that a lot of people talk about. And it's very rare that a bank is going to call a note due. And what that means is if the title is, if the deed is transferred to somebody other than the loan holder, then the bank has the right to call the mortgage due, which means that, I think they give you 90 days to pay the thing off or to deed it back into the name of the loan holder. And this lady, I explained to her, I think our attorney wrote something up. There's like 6 bullet points. He had her initial next to every single bullet point saying this loan could go the entirety of the term. It was also, if this loan is not paid off, it is your responsibility, not Core Development's responsibility. And we didn't do that because we were planning on not paying it. We just wanted her to know.
Yeah, we just wanted full disclosure.
Right. And within like 2 months, she was calling me nonstop, like, when are you going to pay this thing off? When are you going to pay this off? And I said, well, we're going to refinance it, but it has to be a good time. And I think at that time we had reached out to a couple banks and they weren't giving us one appraisal came in really late or really low. Another one didn't want to do it. So I'm like trying to tell, like, we're going to do it. Trust me, we're going to do it. It's just right now is like not the best time. And we did it within
I think
like
you
6
even
months
told her it was going to be like between 1 and 3 years, but she was anxious. Like she had some other plans. So anyway,
full disclosure, make sure that they know everything, make sure that they know the worst case scenario, that if, their credit is going to be wrecked if you don't pay their loan, and they might not even know it. So we've bought some other ones, not subject to, but seller financing, where maybe the owner, they didn't want to take all the profit from the sale in one tax year. They might have investments. They might have paid cash for the property. And you say, hey, we'll buy the property from you. We had that triplex on campus that we did. And this is kind of funny. We introduced the idea of seller financing. We said, hey, we'll give you 7% interest on your money and we'll pay it off within 3 years. And so he said, okay, I think these prices are right. But he said, okay, for a cash offer, I'll take 170. If I seller finance it, I'll take 165. Because he was thinking, well, he's going to make interest on the money over the next 3 years, so he doesn't need that extra 5. And for us, it was like, we think kind of the opposite of that. Now, we don't have to pay for it. We're paying him for financing, but it's much easier. So, of course, we took the 165. And I think we ended up fixing it up and selling it within a couple months, and he got all his money back anyway.
Yeah.
But so circumstance like that where people might they don't need the money. They maybe look at that as a good source of cash flow. And
I think you'll find that people that are a little bit older, maybe they've held the property for a while and they want to sell it, but they don't need the money, but they just don't want the hassle of landlording anymore. But they like the cash flow. I think those types of people would typically be more open to keeping the loan or seller financing a deal.
I had another question about transactional funding. So I'll explain what that is really quick. So what this is typically if a wholesaler is going to double close on a property. So most wholesalers will do assignment. So they have a contract. They're going to write a second contract, an assignment contract that says, I am assigning this first purchase contract from me to you, the end buyer. All right. Now, on a HUD or on a settlement statement, it is going to show exactly what that wholesaler made. Typically, that's the reason that they would do what's called a double closing. And think of it as an A to B transaction and a B to C. So A to B is from the seller to the wholesaler, and B to C is from the wholesaler to the end buyer, the investor typically. And the problem is that you can't do a dry closing. So you have to have funds there. It's called a wet closing would be the opposite of dry. Never heard anybody call it that before, but we'll just call it that. So you have to have funds. Let's say let's say it's 100,000. They're buying it for 90 and they're selling it for 100. There's 10 in the middle. Well, they have to wire that money in, even if it's just for a couple minutes, so they can do that A to B transaction. Then as soon as they do the B to C, then they get their $10,000, and whoever does the transactional funding gets their $90,000 back, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think most title companies, it's either illegal or I'm not really sure what the right term is, but
I've heard of people doing them before, but
they won't use C's money to fund the A to B transaction,
Right.
which would seem logical. I mean, you would think that C is putting up the most money and B is making a little money in between. So it seems like that you could do that, but the transaction or the way it actually has to close is A to B, B to C, and that way they can show the deed transferring properly through the legal channels.
Right. So the question is, what was the question?
Yeah, so I mean, there's people out there that will, a wholesaler doesn't have the money, so they'll hire or they'll find someone that has the money to fund that first transaction for them, and so that's called transactional funding. We do some of that, and I don't know what you want to say about that as far as like how much we're getting paid to do that or how that works.
Yeah, so it's usually like a flat fee, like obviously not zero, but anything up to 50,000 would be one amount, and anything from 50 to 100. I mean, it could be anywhere between $500 transaction up to $2,000 for a transaction to borrow money for a day or two. Now, the question about this was, is this a good passive way for people to invest? I think probably not. There's a lot that goes into it. Like typically I'll look at the deal to make sure that it's good. I'll follow up with the title company. Sometimes there's two title companies. They're buying with one and selling with another. You got to make sure, like what I do, I always make sure that they have instructions not to release my funds until the B2C funds are in, right? So to protect myself, I don't want to fund the A to B transaction if there's a chance that B2C might not close, because that means I'm not getting my money back right away. Now, they might be able to find another buyer quickly, but they might not. So I always make sure that, number one, they have their the money in from the end buyer, and number two, that they have the clear to close. So, and the reason I say this is not probably a good passive way to invest is that you have to have a lot of knowledge too. I think you don't want to just jump into this without really understanding the different, moving parts. I guess you wouldn't know what to look for. So.
And you want to know that the deal is solid because you want to make sure it's going to close, like you said. So I like that. We don't release our funds until the second transaction is funded. I think that there's a lot of things that could go wrong, and if that second transaction does not actually close, your money could be a little bit in jeopardy. And if they're going to take longer to find another buyer and close it, then you obviously want to renegotiate the terms. And they're holding the money longer than however long they said. Yeah.
And the other thing is like the networking side. Like really, people aren't advertising this stuff typically. You have to have the relationships with the wholesalers that are going to use that money, and they have to trust you. All right, the next couple that we have, after being back after our technical difficulties with our camera. We've had mic issues. We've had a couple camera issues. So. Happy Friday.
Yeah, so sometimes we get asked, where do you find contractors? Where do you, how do you just find people that can do the work on your properties? And this is a big deal because you're trusting people to go in and do things properly. So you want to, one of the biggest ways that we find is through networking. Just talking to other investors who they're using. I think some of the online forums are a good place, like Facebook. We've found some people off of like Facebook Marketplace, and it's out there. People have used them, and if they like them, it's all out there. If they don't like them, they're not getting good reviews, and you can kind of shy away from them. Now, before that, we've definitely found people that have not been trustworthy, and we didn't really realize that until too late. Yeah, networking is probably the best way.
How about going to the Home Depot, Lowe's at 6 a.m. and see who's there and get their numbers? I've heard people say that.
I've heard people say that. I've never actually done that, but I like the thought of going to your vendors and talking to them about who they recommend.
Yeah.
So go to the Pro Desk at Home Depot or Lowe's and talk to them about, hey, I need this plumbing done. Do you know? And if it's a plumber, maybe you need to go to Worley Plumbing Supply and ask them, or maybe you need to go to Loeb Electric to find a good electrician. People that are going to these supply houses. I know we've found some people do siding and windows. We've talked to people that have done that from APCO, where we buy our windows and siding from. And so definitely talk to vendors. That's a great way because they know the people that are coming in and buying materials and installing them. And some of these houses, some of these vendors actually, you can go to APCO and you can buy windows and they'll install them for you, but they're not installing them. They're hiring a contractor to do that. So they definitely contacting your vendors.
I was thinking back to the whole go to Lowe's Home Depot at 6 a.m. and get cards there. And I was thinking back to all of the contractors that have not worked out, stolen from us, or not showed up or whatever. They were certainly not up at 6 a.m. I'm positive of it.
That's true.
And I think about the good ones, the Dougs and the Larrys and stuff. Like they're at Lowe's every single morning. Maybe not at 6, maybe 6:30, 7 or something.
Yep.
That's where they start their day and get their materials, and then they head out to their jobs. And those are the ones that have worked out for us. So it's probably a good idea. If you're really having trouble, man, get there and, like Brian said, talk to the pro desk. Say, hey, point me in the direction of someone who does full rehabs or general contractor or whatever it is.
Yeah, because those people that are there early in the morning, they're the ones that you want to hire. They're the ones that are getting after it at the beginning of the day.
Absolutely. How do you manage contractors, Brian?
That's a really good question. Some of them are unmanageable, or they're hard to talk to because they're so loud. We do a few things to manage our contractors. One, we have a scope of work. We write down everything we want them to do, and then we say, hey, if we come across something other than on the scope, then we need to have a conversation about it. You can't just go ahead and do it now. Once we've worked with someone long enough, and maybe you've been our contractor for 2 or 3 years, you kind of know our deal. You know our processes. You know how we're doing things, what we expect, and so there's some leeway there. We know that, hey, if you found something, you don't always have to bring it to our attention. You can just fix it, and we know there's going to be an upcharge on our bill. I think starting out for a contractor, it's always wise to have a contractor's agreement, which is like a legal document that says, hey, we're going to pay you this much. This is what you're going to do in exchange for that money, and this is what our expectation is. Here's the scope of work, and here's how we're going to pay you, and what timeframes and what milestones in this project you need to hit before you get paid. There's definitely been, a lot of times I remember we would pay someone up front for materials. And dang it if you don't get that stolen sometimes. So, some contractors, they want that, but you're going to need to know and be able to trust that person before you put that check in their hand. So, contractors' agreements, scopes of work, pulling permits, requiring permits get pulled for electric and plumbing and the things that the city requires permits. So that, to me, that's a way to make sure that the contractors are doing things properly. The city's coming and checking on it. So maybe you don't know how beams are supposed to be installed in a basement. Well, maybe you should hire an engineer and they'll give you a drawing, and then you can make sure that whatever contractor you hire to put those in is actually doing that to those specifications.
Absolutely. Thank you. Coming from a general contractor himself, Brian.
Yeah, and I think we also do regular checkups, so weekly, get out to the project. Not only that, but have the guy send you pictures, or the girl. Make sure that you're seeing visually what's going on at the project on a regular basis. And I think there's almost every day or two, I'm talking to every one of our contractors. I call them on the phone. Hey, what's going on? What's the update? What's the latest? When are you going to be done? And so just keeping that line of communication open is how we manage it. Some of the people ask us, how do we pay contractors? Another question that we get.
Very carefully.
Starting out, things have changed different. As our business has grown, it's evolved. And I remember when I first started out, I was meeting contractor on the job site because I only had one job. And I'd meet them over there on Fridays, and they'd want to check on Fridays. And I'd write them a check while we're standing by their truck, and then they would pay their guys. And we don't do that anymore. And in fact, through the years, I've paid people at random, hey, can you meet me at Walmart and pay me this? And in the past, we always get people's tax information because obviously our accountant needs to be able to deduct those expenses. So when we give a 1099 to someone, we need to be able to prove who that check went to and whether their social security number, so that can all get reported to the tax authorities. Otherwise, we're going to be paying the tax on that money spent. We won't be able to deduct it. And so we always get that form W-9 from whoever our contractors are. And there's been a couple of times that we haven't been diligent about that, and we've had to go through our accountant and sort of document this whole process of why these are deductible expenses in case it ever gets looked at. there's been a few contractors we've used that they want us to write a check to someone else, not to themselves. And we shy away from those people now. We didn't always shy away from those people because, they were good workers, and I didn't really, know what their story was. They said, hey, I've got a W-9 here, write the check to this guy. I don't even know what their agreement was between those two. I didn't even ask questions, but, now we don't do that. And so I write it now. Our process now is generally, if you do some work for us, you can email your invoice to us, and if it's in by Tuesday night, it'll get paid on Friday, and you'll get your check on Saturday or Monday. Sometimes people will come here to pick up a check, but they can't come till after Friday, Thursday afternoon or Friday when checks are printed. There are a handful of times when we're working with a new vendor, maybe it's like an emergency plumbing thing or whatever. They'll want a credit card right away as soon as the work's done, and that's dealt through property management. And but typically, if you're a long-term contractor for us, we kind of work out this process where you mail in your invoice, and it takes a little bit of trust for them to go out and do the work and expect to get paid. But we've always paid every one of our contractors.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Contractors, it's the toughest part of the job, I think, is managing them, finding them and stuff. So don't be discouraged. Everybody struggles with it. Just, like this check paying thing you was talking about, putting processes in place to kind of control that.
One thing I'll add to that is materials. And, the labor is one thing, but the materials is another. How are you going to get materials to a job site? What materials are needed? And who are you going to trust to buy those? And if you want to go to Lowe's and pick up all the materials every morning and deliver them to the job site so the people can work, that's fine. We have some contractors that when they make a bid, we kind of give them a list, or they know the list of the things that we like to use, and they make their quote based on that list, and they include all the materials, and then they buy materials, and then they submit, and we reimburse them for everything. We have other contractors that we don't trust. And we have an account with a vendor, and we have a contractor that we trust, and we'll pay that contractor to deliver materials to the vendor that we don't know or the contractor that we don't know very well, because I'm not going to trust them to go buy on credit at our account, because that's just opening up a can of worms that leaves opportunity for theft.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's wrap this up. That was a lot of fun talking, answering FAQs. Keep them coming. If you guys want to ask questions on the Facebook page or sending us emails or the website or whatever it is, we're more than happy to, I'd love to do this again once we get some more questions. And we didn't even get to all of them, really. We're just running out of time here. But we appreciate everybody who did submit their questions. Hopefully you guys got something out of this. And I just want to mention last week, we interviewed Peter Lohman, and if you guys didn't listen to that episode, definitely go back and listen to it. I think for Brian and I, it was one of our favorite episodes. A lot of good information. Peter's a property manager here in Columbus. I think he said close to 400 units or something with RL Partners, but a lot of knowledge there. Really just about the market, about the mindset with investing. So if you haven't, go over and watch that or listen to that one. I think it's one of the best ones we've done.
Absolutely. If you have a deal or you want to talk to us about something, feel free to reach out. You can connect with us on our website, takeactionrealestate.com. If you want to catch all the show notes about this episode, you can go to our website, takeactionrealestate.com/episode 42.
42. Thanks everybody for joining us. Appreciate it. Take care.